This happened just a couple of weeks ago. I had recently moved to a small, quiet town as a librarian. I was looking forward to a simpler life after a rough breakup. Everything felt peaceful. The town was surrounded by thick woods, and I rented a small house close to the library. It seemed like the perfect place to start over. On the night of the blizzard, I settled in with a cup of tea and a good book. The wind howled outside, and I found it comforting. But then I heard faint thumps at my front door. My heart raced. I thought it was just ice or something moving with the wind. I brushed it off and went back to reading. Maybe it was nothing. As the storm grew worse, the noises became louder. I started hearing scratching sounds too, like something dragging against the walls. Shadows flickered outside my window. I felt uneasy but told myself it was just the storm playing tricks. I glanced at the clock. It was around midnight. I reminded myself I was safe inside. Or was I? The next day, the blizzard kept going. Snow covered everything outside. I thought a walk would clear my mind. When I looked outside, I saw footprints leading right up to my door. They were small, like a child's, and they disappeared into the woods. My stomach twisted. Who had been out there? I thought about asking a neighbor. I hadn't met many yet. Later, I stepped outside to check the yard. The silence felt heavy, but then I heard whispers. They sounded like laughter mixed with giggles. I shivered. I strained my ears, trying to decide if it was real. Maybe the storm was just messing with my mind. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The hairs on my arms stood up. That evening, I turned off the lights, hoping to see better. My heart pounded as I watched the swirling snow outside. I saw a shadow just past the edge of the light. Was it real? I wasn't sure. Then I thought I heard a child calling out, but the wind drowned it out. I shouted, "Hello?" No answer came. I stood frozen, dread settling in my chest. As I stepped away from the window, I heard it a giggle. I bolted to the door, my mind racing. Was someone out there? I opened the door carefully, but nobody was there. Just the snow swirling in the wind. It felt like something was waiting for me, just beyond sight. What was out there? I shut the door quickly. My heart raced again. I felt alone and unsure. Then I heard the laughter once more, echoing through the trees. I turned back to the door, paralyzed with fear. I had to know what was outside. I took a deep breath and stepped back outside. The wind bit at my skin. I peered into the darkness, searching for the source of the laughter. My heart pounded, and I could almost feel something watching me. But all I saw was snow and shadows. I felt the cold wrap around me. The cold seeped into my bones as I stood there, searching the darkness. I took a cautious step forward, the crunch of snow underfoot the only sound in the eerie stillness. I strained to listen for those voices again, wondering if they were just a figment of my imagination or if something truly was out there. I moved towards the edge of the yard, where the trees blocked out the fading light. The branches swayed and creaked, creating a haunting melody against the wind. I felt drawn to the woods, as if an invisible force was tugging at me, urging me to come closer. Despite my instincts to turn back, I pressed on. With every step, the laughter in my memory grew louder. It filled my mind with images of children playing in the snow, but an unsettling feeling accompanied those thoughts. Most children I imagined were innocent, but this laughter felt different, taunting, almost. I shook my head, trying to brush off the worries that clouded my thoughts. I needed to be logical. Just then, a movement caught my eye. In a clearing between the trees, I thought I saw a figure, small and fleeting. My breath hitched in my throat as I felt panic rise. Was it a child lost in the storm? I opened my mouth to call out, but the words lodged in my throat. The little figure turned and dashed deeper into the woods, swallowed by the shadows before I could take another step. A chill spread through me, rooting my feet to the ground. I should have run inside, locked the door, and forgotten what I had seen. Instead, I hesitated, staring into the dark abyss. Then, that giggle echoed again, closer this time. It sent a shiver through my body. This was not innocent laughter. This felt like a lure, inviting me into the unknown. I turned to head back to the safety of my home, but something caught my eye in the snow. A bright red object lay half buried in the drifts, an old toy. I knelt down to pick it up, brushing off the snow to reveal a small, weathered doll. Its button eyes stared up at me, unblinking and ominous. It felt wrong to touch it, like I was uncovering a secret that was never meant to see the light of day. As I stood there, uncertainty washed over me. Who had left this doll here? Was this connected to the laughter? Suddenly, I heard the wind change, carrying a new sound, a soft, almost sorrowful weeping. It felt closer than before. My heart raced. I couldn't shake the sensation of being surrounded, of eyes watching my every move. Before I knew it, I was sprinting back towards the house. The doll felt heavy in my pocket, a chilling reminder of what I had seen. I burst through the door, slamming it shut behind me. Frantic, I locked all the bolts. But as I leaned against the door, panting, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed me inside. Then, a knock echoed from the back of the house. It was slow and deliberate. My blood ran cold. I stared at the door, my hands trembling. Who or what had come to join me in my newfound solitude? I stood frozen, my heart beating against my ribcage like a trapped animal. The sound of the knock reverberated in my ears, filling the silence that had enveloped me. It was impossible to think. Panic gripped me, but I forced myself to stay calm. In this moment, I couldn't let fear take over. I tiptoed toward the back of the house, every creak of the floorboards screaming against the heavy stillness. My eyes darted around the dimly lit rooms. Shadows danced eerily along the walls. I clutched the doll tightly in my hand, its cold plastic contrasting the warmth of my sweating palm. What if this doll was somehow connected to whatever was outside? I needed answers. Another knock came, this time louder, more insistent. I jumped, almost dropping the doll. It felt as if the sound was coming from inside my head, echoing through my thoughts. I glanced at the windows, the curtains swaying ever so slightly with the wind, adding to the sense of unease. I couldn't see outside, but I felt an urge to look. I carefully reached for the curtain, pulling it aside just enough to peek out. The yard was a blanket of white, the trees stood like sentinels, and yet the only sign of life was the unrelenting snowfall. My breath fogged the glass as I strained to see. There was nothing, or so I thought. Then, just at the edge of the tree line, I spotted something moving. My heart skipped a beat. The silhouette of a small figure appeared, partially obscured by the heavy snowflakes. Instinctively, I let go of the curtain, plunging back into darkness. Was it the same figure I saw earlier? Was it more than just a trick of the light? The thought sent chills down my spine. I turned toward the knock again, and it came once more, but now it sounded as if it were coming from a different spot closer. My breath quickened, and I could hear the rush of blood in my ears. I needed to know who or what was out there. I crept down the hallway toward the living room, heart racing. Each step felt like a countdown to something I wasn't ready to face. I stopped at the living room door, peering through the crack. The room was empty, yet the air felt heavier, thick with an unseen presence. Suddenly, I heard soft whispering. It was indistinguishable at first, like a murmur blending with the wind. My chest tightened as the whispers grew clearer, forming a language I couldn't understand. The doll in my pocket pulsed as if alive, urging me to move. Then, a loud crash erupted from the back door. My body jerked in response, and I stumbled back, the doll slipping from my fingers and landing with a dull thud. Heart pounding, I took a deep breath. The door had burst open, revealing the gusting snow. Just beyond the threshold, a shadow loomed. I caught a glimpse of something pale, with matted hair and an impossibly wide grin. It was then that I realized. The laughter was not just a memory, it had come to life. I backed away, trying to make sense of what I was seeing, but every ounce of logic fled as the figure took a step forward, beckoning me with a crooked finger. I felt a mixture of fear and an inexplicable urge to follow. Now, I was no longer sure where safety lay. I made a decision in that moment. I would either confront the figure or face whatever waited for me in the darkness beyond. Before I could think further, I whispered to myself as much as anyone else, "I can't just stand here." And with that, I took a step forward. The moment I stepped forward, the air shifted. A cold wind howled through the open door, wrapping around me like icy fingers. The shadowy figure didn't flinch as I drew closer. Instead, it twisted its head, the grin stretching even wider across its face, revealing something jagged behind its lips. I could feel my pulse quickening, each thrum buzzing with fear and confusion. "Come play," it crooned, the words dripping with a strange melody that felt wrong in my ears. It sounded almost childlike, innocent yet dark. The whispering I'd heard earlier intensified, scratching at my mind, nudging me toward that creeping darkness. For a brief moment, I hesitated. The snow continued to fall, thick and disorienting, swallowing the world outside. I wanted to run back inside, to slam the door and shut it away. Yet something deep inside me urged me to stay, to understand whatever was lurking out there. The figure moved closer, and I could make out more details. It had a tattered dress, the hem frayed and stained with something dark. Its skin was painfully pale, like moonlight on fresh snow, and the hair hung in tangled strands around its face. "No!" I shouted, my voice shaky but loud enough to pierce through the thickening panic. "What do you want?" My chest heaved, breath frosting in the freezing air. "Come play," it sang again, the tone sweet yet tainted with something sinister. I saw its thin fingers twitch, an invitation or a warning. The urge to follow flared, washing over me with overwhelming intensity. I stumbled back, stopping myself against the doorframe. That doll in my pocket felt heavier than before, like it contained secrets I had yet to understand. I reached for it, fingers clutching the plastic, its coldness grounding me. Just then, I noticed movement behind the figure. A flash of white darted through the trees, catching my attention. My heart raced, eager for something, anything to distract me from the grotesque invitation before me. It was the same figure I had seen earlier at the tree lean, only now it was closer, its outline sharper. "Play!" The figure distorted its face even further, eyes gleaming like polished stones. I couldn't bear it anymore. Torn between the madness outside and the remnants of something familiar within, I turned to flee. The sound of my footsteps echoed against the ice-covered porch as I sprinted back into the house, slamming the door shut behind me. A hush fell inside, as if the house held its breath, but the whispers lingered. They followed me, slithering around my thoughts, growing louder, merging with the wind. I leaned against the door, heart pounding and body trembling. Then, deep within the shadows, I noticed something else, an unexpected movement. The doll, still on the floor where I had dropped it, seemed to shift ever so slightly, as if aware of my panic, as if beckoning me to uncover its secret. I froze again, paralyzed by a mixture of fear and curiosity. That simple toy had felt so mundane, yet I couldn't ignore the way it seemed to pulse with energy. I took a cautious step toward it. But as I reached down, the whispering changed, a frantic chant I couldn't understand. And just like that, the lights flickered, plunging the room into darkness. My heart dropped. I wasn't alone. I fumbled for the light switch, my fingers dancing across the wall, but it was useless. The darkness swallowed me whole. The whispers escalated, weaving a chaotic symphony around me. I could barely breathe, the air heavy and thick. Then, from the corner of the room, I heard it. A soft giggle, like the tinkling of wind chimes in a storm. My instincts screamed at me to back away, but curiosity stayed my feet. "Who is there?" My voice trembled. I strained my ears, trying to pinpoint the source of that sound. A chill ran down my spine. I took a step back, bumping into something cold and metallic. The kitchen chair. I steadied myself, my heart racing. I fought the urge to scream, my throat tightening around the sound. The darkness shifted. I swore I saw a blur near the window, a fleeting movement, something small and quick. A flash of white? "Get away from me!" I shouted, hoping my voice would expose whatever lurked in the shadows. Nothing responded, but the whispers grew more urgent. The energy in the room felt alive, electric, as though it were waiting for me to make a choice. I took a deep breath and carefully edged towards the window, feeling my way through the blackness. Rattling against the glass, the snow piled outside. I squinted, hoping to see something or someone. The night was a swirl of white, disorienting and surreal, the world I knew transformed into a nightmare. Then I felt it again. A tug at the hem of my jeans, a light brush like a child's playful touch. I whirled around, heart racing, ready to confront whatever had found its way inside. Show yourself. Suddenly, the lights flickered back on. I blinked against the bright light, and moments later I gasped. There it was. The doll. It had moved, now upright with its head tilted unnaturally to the side, a wide, unblinking stare locked on me. Its mouth was curled into a sinister smile, and its plastic eyes seemed to glisten with mischief. Not alone, it whispered, the voice eerily high and laced with laughter that sent fresh waves of panic crashing over me. Before I could react, the air in the room shifted again. The temperature dropped, and I felt a presence creeping closer, like fingers trailing down my spine. My heart pounded like a drum. In a moment of clarity, I remembered the stories I'd heard. Stories of a curse that swirled around dolls of souls trapped and bound in plastic. The whispers had warned me. The fear that thickened the air suddenly crystallized into sober realization. I glanced back to the window. Outside, shapes moved rhythmically in the snow, but beyond them, the darkness loomed. I had to know what was happening. The doll had my answer. I stepped forward, my breath hitching. The doll's smile widened, and I took another step. What do you want? I asked, my voice breaking. That S when I saw it writing. Words scrawled in the dust on the windowsill, barely visible but unmistakable. Find me. My hands shook as I felt the urge to take a step back. But a strange determination filled me. If I didn't act now, whatever was outside would come for me. I turned back to the doll, ready to uncover its dark secret. But before I could reach it, I heard a soft knock at the door. My stomach dropped. I stood frozen, my heart racing. The knock came again, firm but gentle, as if the person on the other side was trying to be courteous in the midst of my chaos. Who is it? I called out, my voice shaky. The doll remained still, its eerie smile unwavering, as if it was waiting for me to answer the call. The knock echoed once more. Something inside me screamed to ignore it, to retreat into the safety of my thoughts, but I felt compelled to find out. I had to know. I stepped away from the doll, my body trembling. The way it stared at me felt like a challenge. I shook my head, trying to gather my thoughts. I'm coming! I shouted, more to reassure myself than anyone else. I hesitated for just a moment before grasping the doorknob. A chill seeped through the wood as I pulled it open. The blizzard wind rushed in, swirling snowflakes around me like a wild dance. But there was no one outside. I stepped out onto the porch, scanning the empty yard. Wind howled in my ears as darkness stretched before me, the shadows deepening. Only swirling snow greeted me, cutting through the cold air with an icy bite. I felt exposed, vulnerable. Then I noticed something beneath the porch light, a small object half buried in the snow. Curiosity pulled me closer despite the instinct to run back inside. As I dug it out, my heart sank. A tiny shoe, one that looked almost identical to the doll's outfit. A shiver coursed through me. No way. I turned to look back at the doll through the window. It was still there, staring, its smile even wider. I could feel its presence looming behind me as if it had crossed the distance with ease. Nerves spilling over, I backed away from the door and stumbled into the house. I slammed the door shut, heart racing as I leaned against it, trying to gather myself. The doll was now sitting on the table, the same expression locked in place, but I swore it felt different closer somehow. Panic gripped me. This time, its laughter echoed in the corners of the room, twisting around me like a whirlwind. I felt as if I was suffocating under the weight of it. Why are you doing this? I shouted at the doll. Tell me what you want. As if in response, the lights flickered again, illuminating a swirling mist that had begun to fill the corners of the room. Shadows twisted, forming shapes that danced through the air. My breath hitched. Then abruptly, the whispers changed. They transformed into a single phrase, "Find her." My heart dropped. At that moment, I realized I might not be the only one trapped here. I took a step back, pulse pounding. I was caught in something far beyond my understanding, and I needed to find a way out. That S when the doll fell off the table, landing with a thud. Its smile faltered, like a reflection cracking under pressure. I stared at it, filled with a mix of dread and determination. If I was going to unearth the truth, I needed to focus. I needed to find out who her was. But in that moment, I had one clear thought: whatever was outside was coming closer. I took a deep breath and forced myself to calm down. I needed to think. Find her. The words echoed in my mind. Who was I supposed to find? My eyes darted between the doll and the snow beyond the window. I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was happening was connected to that tiny shoe. I moved toward the table cautiously, but the mist thickened, swirling around my feet. It was colder now, like the air had been sucked out of the room. My heart raced as I scanned the darkness for any sign of movement. That doll seemed to pulse with a life of its own, its gaze piercing through me. Then, something shifted in the shadows. A flicker of movement caught my eye, and I jolted back. I didn't want to believe that I was truly seeing something, a shape, perhaps? A silhouette against the wall, darker than the rest. I blinked, but it was gone. Just like that. I shook my head, trying to dispel the fear that tangled around my thoughts. I needed proof. I needed something tangible to hold on to. As if in response, the doll suddenly turned its head, just slightly, enough to make me gasp. My stomach twisted. This was no longer a game. "Who is she?" I whispered, more to myself than to the doll. The atmosphere felt charged, heavy with unfulfilled questions. I grabbed the shoe from my pocket, feeling the chill against my palm. "If this is about you, then what happened?" It was a long shot, but I needed a response. The frost creeping in around the edges of the window seemed to thicken, pushing me further back into the house. Then came a soft creak from the hallway. It wasn't the wind. My heart pounded as I turned quickly. The door to the spare room was slightly ajar. The shadows there fell deeper, as though something was waiting, eager for me to step closer. I hesitated, debating my next move. I had two choices: stay in this room with the doll or venture into the unknown beyond the door. The whispers began again, swirling around in my mind, urging me forward. Find her. I took a cautious step toward the hallway. Each creak of the floorboards seemed unbearably loud. I reached for the door, the handle icy in my grip. As I pushed it open, I felt the room's temperature drop further, a wave of terror washing over me. Inside, the room was almost pitch black, but I could make out shapes, old furniture draped in white sheets, gathering dust and forgotten memories. But then, glinting in the corner, I caught sight of something familiar, another shoe, perfectly identical to the one I had found outside. My breath caught in my throat. I stepped inside, heart racing. That was when the door slammed shut behind me, locking me in darkness. My pulse quickened as panic set in. "Get out!" I shouted, but silence filled the room. The only sound was the hollow echo of my voice. Then I heard it, a soft giggle, high-pitched and childlike, fluttering through the air. I whipped around, heart pounding wildly. Someone was in the room with me. The giggle curled through the air like smoke, teasing me, wrapping me in a shroud of confusion. I squinted into the darkness, trying to discern movement. "Who's there?" I called, my voice tight and wavering. Nothing answered but the relentless silence. That silence felt alive, pressing against my eardrums. I shifted my weight, still clutching the tiny shoe tightly. My fingers began to tingle as the chill seeped deeper, a lingering reminder of the oppressive cold that had closed in around me. Then I heard it again, the unmistakable sound of soft footsteps across the wooden floor. My heart raced. They were close. Just behind me, I could feel the weight of another presence. I whirled around, searching every shadow, but there was no one there. Just the cockeyed piles of old furniture and dust settling like a blanket over everything. I took a step back, wanting to bolt, but fear anchored me to the spot. "What do you want?" I managed to say, my throat dry as cotton. The giggle erupted into a series of lilting notes that rang like bells. It felt familiar, almost comforting, but I knew better than to trust it. The shoe felt heavier in my palm. It was no ordinary shoe, it carried a weight of mystery I couldn't quite grasp. I dropped it to the floor, the sound echoing unnaturally loud in the dark space. In the blink of an eye, the giggle ceased, replaced by a sharp silence that slashed through the air. Then, out of nowhere, the outlines of a girl appeared at the edge of my vision. Her silhouette flickered, almost like a mirage. She wore a dress that looked like it was stitched from shadows, contrasting harshly with the soft glow of the moonlight seeping through the curtain. "Help me," she whimpered, her voice fragile and strained. "She is coming." I felt my heart drop. "Who is coming?" Before the girl could answer, the air shifted again. Heavy footsteps echoed from the hallway, slow and deliberate. A sinking dread gripped my insides. My instincts screamed at me to run, but my feet felt glued to the ground. The girlish figure flickered again, her face shifting, revealing a mix of fear and urgency. "Find her," she urged, her voice now a whisper, a warning caught in the current of the air swirling about us. My breath formed clouds in the freezing room as I processed her words. They were the same ones that had echoed in my mind before. I had to do something, but I didn't know how to help her. The footsteps grew louder, reverberating through the house, creating an unbearable tension. "Get out!" the girl hissed, and suddenly she vanished, leaving behind a faint trace of warmth like an echo of her presence. A chill ran down my spine, and I turned towards the door, my pulse racing. I needed to escape before that unseen presence arrived. Without thinking, I lunged toward the door, but it wouldn't budge. I shoved against it, the wood groaning under my weight. And just like that, the footsteps stopped. For a moment, an eerie silence filled the room again. I pressed my ear against the door, trying to catch any hint of movement outside. The air felt charged, straining against me. I was not alone, but I might be trapped. That's when I heard a soft voice behind me, whispering my name. "Help me." I froze, my blood running cold. The room was dark, but I wasn't sure how much longer I could resist turning around. I had to find a way out, but now, more than ever, I needed to find her. I took a shaky breath, forcing myself not to turn. The voice was soft and close, like a feather brushing against my ear. I swallowed hard, uncertain of what to do next. My instincts screamed that I had to get out, but curiosity kept my feet rooted to the ground. Was this girl the same one who had vanished just moments before? The thought sent another chill down my spine. If I didn't help her, what would happen next? I stepped back, still facing the door. "Who are you?" I whispered, hoping for an answer that wouldn't send me spiraling into panic. "Help me," the voice repeated, laden with sorrow and urgency. A new wave of desperation filled my chest. I had to face it, had to turn and see what was behind me. With a sudden rush, I spun around, my eyes darting through the shadows. The room felt suffocating, as if the walls were closing in, but I saw her again standing there, barely visible, like smoke caught in a pale beam of light. "Please," she pleaded, her eyes wide and glistening with unshed tears. "You have to find her before it's too late." "Find who?" I asked, stepping closer as the air around us grew colder. She stared at me, her expression a mixture of fear and determination. Just then, the heavy footsteps resumed, closer now, echoing through the hallway just outside the door. Panic surged, and I instinctively glanced back toward my escape route. The door was still unforgiving, and I felt the pressure growing within me. "She is here!" the girl cried, her voice rising as she started to fade again. "You can't let her take you." "Wait!" I shouted, desperation fighting against my rising dread. But she was gone, leaving only silence in her wake. The footsteps grew louder, now punctuated by a low, menacing whisper that caressed my ears. My heart thudded in rhythm with the growing sense of impending doom. I had to act, but every instinct told me to flee. As I pressed my back against the door, my mind raced. The little shoe lay forgotten at my feet, a symbol of the girl's plea. I should have listened, I muttered under my breath, trying to fight back the creeping fear. Suddenly, a haunting laugh echoed through the room, sharper and more cutting than before. It seemed to wrap around me, pulling me into the darkness. I braced myself, hands clammy against the doorframe. Then everything shifted. A window shattered somewhere in the house, sending shards of glass clattering to the floor. I turned, fear coursing through me, expecting a surge of cold air to streak across my skin. Instead, the darkness seemed to deepen, swallowing the dim light in the room. That's when I saw it. A figure tall and shadowy loomed in the doorway. My breath caught in my throat as it stepped forward, its face obscured, revealing only a feral grin that stretched across the darkness. I needed to escape, but my feet refused to move. A single thought pierced through the fog of terror: I might be out of time. I turned back to the door, pounding on it with all my strength. It was useless. Whatever was behind me was closing in, and that laugh echoed in my mind like a cruel taunt. I squeezed my eyes shut, hoping to wake from this nightmare. But reality pressed against me with an urgency I couldn't ignore. I felt an overwhelming urge to confront the figure. I couldn't let terror win. I took a hesitant step forward, my vision focused on the shadowy mass. "Who are you?" I yelled, my voice shaky but louder than the thumping of my heart. The figure stopped. "A friend," it hissed, voice sliding into my ears like dark oil. That voice, laced with distorted sweetness, was like nails on a chalkboard. "I'm here for the one you seek. Your friend can't help you now, dear." The girl's image flooded my mind, her plea still fresh. "You don't know anything about her," I shouted, defiance swelling in my chest. "You're lying." In a blink, the shadow surged forward, and I barely had time to react. It lunged at me, fingers outstretched, but I darted to the side. The door behind me rattled violently in its frame. I could feel a surge of wind, as if something was trying to break through. Drawing on every ounce of courage, I charged back toward the window from where the figure had emerged. With a quick glance, I saw the snowstorm swirling beyond the glass, obscuring the chaos outside. I had no choice. It was an escape route. I readied myself, but as I approached the window, shadows extended and twisted, impacting the glass like tendrils of smoke. The cold seeped through, wrapping around my ankles, threatening to ground me. The doll. I needed it. I spun back toward the table where it lay, feeling the weight of its gaze. The doll would give me the answers. Perhaps it held the key to stopping whatever this was. I lunged back, grabbing the doll. It felt alive again, pulsing with energy. "What do you want?" I shouted, desperate for an answer, for salvation. "Find her, find her," it echoed, the words reverberating off the walls. With those words, clarity surged in me. I hadn't faced my fear yet. I hadn't really looked for the girl. Suddenly, the figure moved again, fierce and fast. "She's gone. You can't stop what you can't see," it spat, voice dripping with malevolence. With a surge of adrenaline, I threw the doll towards the smudged mirror across the room. Time seemed to suspend as it connected, the glass shattered, sending shards flying in every direction. A brilliant light exploded, illuminating the once-wrought darkness. "No!" the shadow screamed as it recoiled. In that flash, I spotted the girl again, flickering but resolute, emerging from the depths of the chaos. I could see the faint outline of her dress shifting with the light. "Find me," she called one last time, as if the force around us had shifted. The malevolent presence faltered, and the laughter turned into shrieks of despair. I didn't hesitate. Tucking the doll under my arm, I sprinted toward the darkness where the girl had appeared. As I stepped forward, the shadows twisted and danced around me, retreating from my path. In that moment of luminescence, I couldn't grasp what was happening but felt a surge of hope. I propelled myself toward the girl, but she wavered under the weight of the still looming figure. The light faded just as I reached her, flooding me with confusion and dread. "I found you!" I shouted, trying to grasp her arm, but it slipped through my fingers like wisps of fog. "Not yet," she whispered, her form disappearing completely. My heart sank. Was this it? Had I failed her? But then the doll pulsed stronger, the darkness around me jolting back. I was released from the grip of the shadow, stumbling forward. I caught a glimpse of the window light pierce the storm outside. I veered back toward the exit. With a throaty scream, I pushed through the back door and into the blizzard beyond. Snow poured down, coating everything in an otherworldly silence. It felt as though the world had transformed completely. I glanced back at the house, expecting the darkness to spill out, but all that remained was a cold reflection in the window, and the faint outlines of toys scattered across the yard. I ran, driven by a blend of fear and resolve. Whatever had happened inside that house would haunt my nights, but I knew I could still find the girl. A feeling of determination thrummed within me, echoing the whispers. Find her! Yet, as I dashed deeper into the storm, I couldn't shake the sensation that even though I had escaped, the answers had only begun to unravel. Days later, I was still haunted by questions. I'd moved on, yes, but the small town held layers I was yet to explore. I could hear the whispers in the snow whenever the wind howled, and I found myself staring at the now quiet woods. But I still think about that doll and the girl in the snow. Part of me wonders if I will ever truly be free, or if, in some hidden corner of the mind, they remain waiting.